Welcome to the first ever Himalaya Film Fest. I'd love to know if you can hear me. Woo! My name is Heidi. I will be one of your MCs for the evening. I am the owner of, or I am an owner of the Refinery House here in the Fraser Valley, a proud sponsor, one of the proud sponsors of this evening, and I'm also one of the board members of Himalayan Life, the organization putting on this event. We're so happy to be here tonight. You will be enjoying a series of short films by filmmakers from across the world. We are here tonight for this film festival called the Himalaya. When we say Himalaya, chances are images of Mount Everest or other famous vistas come to mind. But tonight, we anticipate introducing you to the people of the Himalayas. This has been put on by an organization called Himalayan Life that does work throughout Nepal and in parts of India. This area of the world is currently suffering under the impacts of COVID, but the reality is, citizens of these parts of the world, in these countries, have been struggling for a very long time.
Hi, I'm Steffi from Himalayan Life. So at this point, we would like to thank our sponsors. On the platinum level, we would like to thank Trev Dealey Motorcycles. On the gold level, we would like to thank Refinery House, Scout Campers, and Masonite Doors. And on the silver level, we would like to thank Casey and Beyond the Banks. All right, it is time for our first grand prize draw, which is an Arc'teryx jacket. Woo! All right, so check out the chat function to see if you get to take home an Arc'teryx jacket. And if you haven't put in your name yet, there are more prizes coming throughout the show, so you can still sign up to win some prizes.
Our first film is titled Transformation, produced by the Swiss filmmaker Peter Schöblin. Before we watch the film, I'd like to give you some background information about Peter. I met Peter 3 years ago. He was kind of a last-minute tag-along who came with some other guests to Nepal for the opening of the Himalayan Life School, about which we will learn later tonight. I didn't know Peter was a professional photographer and filmmaker at the time, but then we organized an impromptu film festival for the students at the school, and Peter offered to also show some of his stuff. Here's an excerpt of one of the pieces we got to see under the starry sky in Nepal. Stunning footage by this Swiss filmmaker taken off the coast of BC in Haida Gwaii. I invited him back to Nepal and I said, Peter, you have to come and help us produce some films about the work of Himalayan Life. And so here is the film that Peter produced about the migrant workers in Nepal. We're here in Ladakh at an altitude of 3,500 meters above sea level. The Himalayas with its majestic peaks and glaciers to the south, the Karakoram with K2 as its crowning glory to the north, a wonderfully beautiful place. This here is a bridge across the Indus River, a long river stretching from Pakistan all the way through India to the ocean. I have to say I love this place, it's so stunningly beautiful. And at the same time, there's a group of people here, Nepalese migrant workers, who are mostly employed to build houses and roads and in this border area between India and Pakistan, and they're carving out an existence where there isn't much at all and work under unbelievably hard conditions. And one of the aspects of our work is to take care of their kids. Life in the Himalayas, particularly here in the border area of India and Tibet, is very much shaped by Tibetan Buddhism. Ancient monasteries, seemingly hanging from cliffs, are the center of life for every village community. Prayer flags strung along trails, crests and peaks are expressing people's hope for salvation. In fact, people here do take religion very seriously and spend much time and energy on working on their karma. This includes activities such as spinning of prayer wheels, chanting of mantras, as well as pilgrimages and even self-flagellation, inching ever closer to the coveted goal of nirvana. Against the backdrop of the amazing mountainscape and culture here in the border area of India and Tibet, thousands of Nepalese nationals carve out an existence as migrant workers. They have migrated here in search of work and livelihood, having left behind their native communities in Nepal due to social and economic hardship. Here in Ladakh, they mostly work in road and house construction. In the harsh Himalayan climate, with the thermometer plummeting as low as -30 in the winter, the Nepalese migrant workers live and work in the poorest imaginable conditions, oftentimes being housed in makeshift tents in labor camps along the construction sites. In the eyes of the locals, the Nepalese are simply a cheap and expendable workforce. In fact, many of the Nepalese have been forced into a situation of bonded labor, whereby they can no longer choose freely where they live and whom they work for. They are modern-day slaves of the 21st century, shackled by economic chains to their perpetual poverty. Many of the Nepalese migrant workers are families with children. Given their parents' socio-economic situation and their living conditions in labor camps without access to basic services or schooling, the future of these children looks bleak. Most likely, their lives will be no different from their parents', wrapped up in labor, dust, and poverty. This is why we at Himalayan Life decided 12 years ago to start a hostel for the children of the Nepalese migrant workers. The goal is for them to grow up in circumstances that are conducive to their growth and development in a loving environment with access to good schooling and education. At the Himalayan Life hostel, they learn to live with hope, perspective, and vision, equipped with the right tools to take hold of their own future. The hostel is for them the key to escape the downward spiral of poverty. There is no shortage on challenges for the kids, even once they have been enrolled at the Himalayan Life hostel and the local school. Their status as migrants, their language and social background all threaten to hamper their personal development and educational advance. By way of extracurricular activities and tuition classes, we are helping the children to reach their potential in spite of the adverse circumstances. Some of the students have now completed their schooling. 4 girls have graduated successfully and are ready to move on to college. However, none of their families can really afford their children's continued education, and so Himalayan Life will continue to help out. For negotiating the details, we are meeting with the girls and their parents in one of the family's home. It's March, and the worst of the winter's cold is over, but it is still barely above freezing temperature inside their home. A fire is being lit, and soon the cold has been replaced by thick air with barely any oxygen. The girls have prepared a statement each, outlining their aspirations and professional goals. Namrata wants to become a banker, Nima a fashion designer, Anoki a physician, and Diskit a pilot. All 4 families are supportive of their girls' continued education and are willing to contribute. The deal is that they need to come up with half of the cost of enrollment and 10% of the cost of tuition during the next 2 years. The rest will be covered by Himalayan Life. The parents' contribution is important to us. We want them to be able to perceive of their children's education as their achievement. Likewise, is the girls' commitment important to us. If they discontinue their education part of the way without compelling reason, they will need to repay all scholarship funds which they have received.
After 10th, I would like to study about arts stream because my aim is to become a fashion designer. The personality of a person is shown by his or her fashion.
After 10th, I will choose commerce stream. So I also interest commerce stream. So I like banking.
I will be choosing non-medical. I know it's very tough subject and it's very difficult, but still I'll try my best and I'll do my hard work because my aim is to become pilot. From 5th grade I just want to become a pilot, and whenever I used to see up in the sky, and I used to say that one day I'll also fly an aeroplane, and that's my wish from childhood. And I know that it's very difficult, and and even my marks are not so good to choose that subject, but still I'm trying my best and doing my hard work. Yeah.
In 11th, I'm gonna choose the medical because I always inspire with other people's that medical is my aim. So I want to be a great physician. So if I will get success in my life, then I will treat those poor children who are not able to get that treatment.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole from Himalayan Life, and I hope you're enjoying the show so far. We just want to say a big thank you to those who donated for our prizes tonight. A thank you to Arc'teryx and Anne Hurst. So we're about to do our second draw for a prize tonight, and it is going to be an original painting from North Vancouver artist Anne Hurst. So check out the chat box below to see if you get to take home one of these beautiful paintings.
The next film takes us to a village called Yangri. This is called Building a Future. It's by the same filmmaker as you've previously just seen, Peter Schablin. And before you see this film, you're actually going to meet Peter answering the question, what is it that captures his attention when he's looking at the world through the eye of his viewfinder in the camera? Peter Schablin.
Most of my photography is that kind of is really, like, let's say from the heart, is either people or nature. And in Nepal you have both, but I think on the journeys up to now we had, it were really the people, the men and women and kids I met. And of course, when I look through the viewfinder of my camera, I feel deeply connected with the people which are in front of me. And what I would like to is like telling their story. I think what fascinated me when I started photographing, I was in the age of 12, is that I really can tell the stories of other people, to my friends, to people around me. And that stayed with me until now. So every time when I am, let's say, at a place, I try to get a sense for the people which are around me. And then I really would like to show them what they are, what they do. And I hope that then when I bring this to others, that they are touched in the same way as I am when I am there. Of course, it's always...
In 2015, the earth shook in Nepal, an event that went down in history as the Himalayan mega-quake. Mount Everest was shifted 3 inches to the south. The entire Kathmandu Valley, with all its surrounding mountains, shifted 9 feet to the south. Thousands of people lost their lives. Within seconds, the livelihood and houses of literally millions was gone. As an organization, We have come to this valley, to the Yangri Valley, within days after the earthquake, and we've been able to substantially contribute to the relief efforts and the rebuilding efforts in this valley. And I think we've really been able to make a difference to the various communities in the Yangri Valley. What gives me the most joy, though, is that we have the opportunity to not just clean up what was damaged in the earthquake, but also build future. We're building a school for hundreds of children, and I do believe that education will actually be the major building block for building a new future with new purpose and new life for this community here in the Yangri Valley. Most inhabitants of the Yangri Valley are subsistent farmers. On fields that are much too small, too steep and too stony, they plant rice, millet and corn, carving out a meager existence. In this way, their lives are closely intertwined with the land, the climate and the seasons. Only few of the adults in the region have any education whatsoever. They never had the opportunity to go to school at all. The lower part of the Yangri Valley is inhabited by Tamang people. The Tamang have their own language, and while mainly shaped by Buddhism, their culture and religion also displays elements of shamanism. Further up the valley are a number of Sherpa villages. The Sherpas are an originally Tibetan people renowned for their incredible ability to live and work in the thin air of the high Himalayas. They have earned themselves a reputation as mountain guides and porters for Himalaya expeditions, and Sherpa Tenzing became famous for being the first man to climb Mount Everest together with Sir Edmund Hillary. While there is certainly beauty in living and working in such closeness to the land as the people in the Yangri Valley do, the reality is also that even before the earthquake, particularly younger people have began to leave because of lacking infrastructure, services and job opportunities. In a sense, the earthquake, with its total destruction of pretty much everything in the valley, has put an end to the old way of life. Now is the time to find a new way.
Then, keep good habits.
One key element for development in the Yangri Valley is education. Without access to decent schooling, young families will continue to migrate away. Schooling is key to the transformation of people's mindset and worldview. It is an important foundation for personal and professional development. After our initial relief efforts in terms of providing medical care, tents and food after the earthquake, we therefore determined that Himalayan Life's best way of helping the people in the Yangri Valley will be to invest in a regional school. Right from the get-go, the idea has been to make it a model school which will serve in two ways: provide quality education to the children of the region and also serve as a role model for schooling in the unfortunately pretty much bankrupt educational system of Nepal. Buildings, curriculum, didactical methods, teaching material, everything at the Yangri Academic Center is carefully thought through and designed to deliver good educational results. The buildings were designed by a Canadian architect who understands seismic engineering. The result are cost-efficient, earthquake-resistant, versatile and aesthetically beautiful timber-framed buildings. As much as possible, locally available building material has been used for the buildings. The timber was sourced from the woods higher up in the Yangri Valley and was mostly taken from trees which fell during the earthquake. All the furniture was produced on site. The curriculum goes far beyond the minimum standard which has been set by the Nepalese government. Every student is being helped, both the academically gifted and struggling ones, to develop their full potential. In order to safeguard the quality of teaching at the Yangri Academic Center, a lot of effort is going into the continued education and training of the teachers. We are working with current and cutting-edge educational methods. Our school is to be a place where children not only learn academically, but where they are being helped in their personal development to grow up to be responsible citizens with good values such as integrity, compassion, hope, and care. One of our students is a girl named Neri. Her family lives in Ripar, a village far up the valley northeast of Yangri. Twice a month, Neri can go home over the weekend. In order to better understand her circumstances and get a first-hand glimpse of her home, we go with her. Without the boarding school in Yangri, Neri wouldn't have the chance to go to school at all. For her, the Yangri Academic Center is opening up new possibilities. 3,000 vertical feet and 3 hours later, we arrive in Ripar at Neri's home. Seeing how happy the parents are to see Neri is heartwarming. We too are being welcomed and served the traditional Badayak tea. It is beautiful and peaceful up here. The air is clean and crisp, the view incredible. Forgotten are the noises and fumes of the city. However, life is also very simple here. The houses are teeny. Food is being cooked on the open fire, and there are no sanitary installations. Like everybody else in the village, Neri's family are subsistent farmers. A few goats and a war buffalo are supplying a little bit of milk. While the hospitality and friendliness of Neri's family are truly touching, we do realize at the same time what Neri's future would look like without schooling. Getting married before 15, having children, tending the animals. All of this in a social environment where nobody is even literate. No access to magazines, newspapers, books. No literacy or numeracy. Only speaking Sherpa, a language which doesn't even let her communicate with the people further down the valley. The Yangri Academic Center truly opens up a new world for children in the Yangri area, children like Neri. In April 2018, the Yangri Academic Center opened its doors for the first batch of 100 students, ranging from kindergarten to grade 3. 60 of those children were housed in the school's student dorms as their homes are too far away and they wouldn't be able to go home, just like Neri. Many of the children had missed 3 years of school as their schools were destroyed in the earthquake. Others had never gone to school even before the earthquake. Needless to say that the first few months turned out to be anything but easy for the students, as everybody was engaged in a relentless catch-up race with extracurricular coaching classes in various subjects, making up for the time lost. For the teachers too, the first year was very challenging as the Yangri Academic Center has educational standards which are very high compared to other schools. After all, we're striving to be a model school in every way. The teachers have been and continue to be supported by experienced and highly skilled educators brought in from Germany and Canada. They are helping them to develop the curriculum and educational methods, as well as preparing teaching units and supporting them in their classroom management. With the help of these coaches, the quality of teaching is being improved continuously.
Stamp your feet, listen to the music and stamp your feet.
In April 2019, another 50 children, as well as grade 5 and 6, have been added. The Yangri Academic Center now has a student body of 150 children and 24 staff. The plan is to add grades 6 and 7 next year. To this end, we are currently expanding the infrastructure by way of adding another pod of 4 classrooms and an additional student dorm building. There are also educational opportunities for the adults in the village. Presently, some 20 ladies are participating in the daily literacy classes from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Even the village chief's 70-plus-year-old mom is participating, which is very encouraging to everyone and setting a sign that education is now being taken seriously in Yangri. In the long run, however, school alone will not be sufficient to secure the future of the Yangri Valley. People need jobs and income. Together with the locals, we're considering opening a vocational training center where young adults can learn trades such as carpentry, welding, or plumbing. Furthermore, we are in conversation with the farmers regarding the much-needed switch from subsistence farming to commercial farming. Growing organic fruit and vegetables for the market in Kathmandu, as well as planting coffee in the valley, are options that are being seriously considered at present. Education is listed in the UN Charter of Human Rights as one of the fundamental rights for children. Personally, I believe that education is so much more than just a human right. It is simply the most fundamental building block for young people, for children, girls like Neri, to build their future and take hold of their own future. I believe that education, if it's done right, if it's done with care and with excellence, has the transformative power to change individual lives, families, communities, in fact, the entire nation. My hope for this school is exactly this, that it is a place where we do education well, where teachers continue to be excited about this process of guiding the kids into their future, where we work with cutting-edge educational methods, where students learn to discover the sheer joy of education. I dream of doing this with things like outdoor school. I dream of having a satellite to this school up in the village at the very end of the valley in Gangkarka, where students can go for a week and learn in the outdoors, learn about the animals and the birds and the traditional ways of living, the Sherpa culture and the Tamang culture, where they can immerse themselves in different ways into studies. I dream for this school to simply be the best. I know it's a big dream, but I think we can actually do this. I think this school has the potential of being a signpost for the entire education system in the country, because the bottom line really is that girls like Neri deserve the best that education has to give to them.
As indicated at the beginning of this program, more and more people from this area are heading over to Nepal, and Kirsten is one of those people. You might recognize her from the film. She is an educator in the area with a focus on special education. She believes in the difference that education can make in the lives of children, and specifically in the lives of the children in Nepal. And Kirsten, you have been to Yangri and to the education center there, and I'd love to hear from you tonight about the impact that you believe this center can have in the lives of children and in the community and in the families there.
Hello, thank you so much, Heidi. It's true, I have seen the impact that the Yangri Academic Center has in the lives of the children that are at the school, and can I just say it is profound. The alternative that Yangri Academic Center provides to the children that are getting their education through this amazing opportunity is that to an archaic education model of the traditional schools within Nepal. Their system is rigid, it's state-run, it does not have space for all children, including girls and children with unique learning needs. The building blocks of the Yangri Academic School have been identified by all community stakeholders and are embraced by Himalayan Life. They are values including honor, respect, growth, belonging, and care. They're represented in all aspects of the daily life of the students of the school, including every lesson in the curriculum, and also represented in the women's literacy classes in the village. Quality basic education gives children and youth the knowledge and skills that they need to face daily challenges and takes advantage of economic lifelong learning opportunities. It's also the key driving force to reduce poverty, fostering economic growth within communities, achieving gender equality, and social development. The other thing I loved about Himalayan Life and what they're doing in the Yangri Academic Center is that they have cultural safety. What they do is based on respectful engagement that recognizes and strives to address power imbalances inherent within the Nepali education system. The result is a learning environment that's free of discrimination, where people are free and safe to learn and to grow. Kids are engaged, they're curious, and they're invested. I don't know what the future will hold for these children, but I do know that it will be filled with innovation, self-determination, community engagement, self-knowledge and self-worth, culture, healing of generational trauma, and children who are prepared to go forward in a good way. The Yangri Academic Center fosters possibility for all students. It's a catalyst for intentional change, development, and growth in the lives of these children who it serves. And the ripple effect has just begun.
All right, it's that time again for our next prize draw. This time, the prize is an Arc'teryx pack. Okay, so check out the chat function to see if you get to take home an Arc'teryx pack today.
It is my pleasure to announce the next film. The title is Interrupted by the young and aspiring filmmaker Matthew Costomo. And you know what? We'll have the chance to have Matthew up here after the film. So without further ado, this is Interrupted.
We go this direction, it's okay.
Can I have everyone's attention for a moment? Yeah? Yes. Very good. Welcome.
That's the water going up. It's invisible because you can't really see it.
What about you, Max?
It was solid. It was fun. Teachers were amazing too.
Yeah.
Oh, so
the kids were
nice.
super focused and really respectful. It was awesome.
Just received word that PA is canceling their trip. By that I mean they have to head home early, which means their trek is kiboshed and a lot of other stuff. So this coronavirus is turning into an adventure.
After all the preparations that went in for this trip, I was really confident that this was going to be a good time, that we were going to make progress together, PA and the Yangri Academic Center. And still, there's a level of nervousness, of course. We've never done this. This is the first time we have brought in a group of high school students. I was really positively surprised how all of this developed, how relationships were being built, and how programs were being executed. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. We knew from the beginning that this is probably going to be a factor, but nobody expected things to develop so rapidly as they did. And that day when the news started trickling in, that there's shutdowns and lockdowns and that even Canada is going in lockdown, well, that was a shock. That was a shock to all of us, and we tried to process, what does this mean?
We've had some news from the world and Canada. COVID-19 is really going crazy around the world. So our board has decided that all teams come home immediately.
We're hearing about televised news from our Prime Minister asking everybody to come home immediately. And then, of course, there's PA's leadership in Canada, which is asking for the students to come home immediately. And there was this sense of being interrupted in what we're doing here.
What's the general feelings?
Sad, disappointment, I guess, but also, like, we got to see a lot.
My attention obviously had to be on Himalayan Life's programs and our staff in Nepal. I still was trying to catch up with the speed of how the pandemic developed.
So, with that in mind, I propose this question. What does a charity do in a pandemic?
In some ways, the group from PA was a little bit like a microcosm for everything that happened in our charity in preparation and then in the pandemic. People first, making sure everybody is safe. That's still our first mandate. Shortly after PA left, we had to close down the school by order of the local administration. We do believe in the value of education, and that's not just an academic exercise, but it's the holistic development of the students and the entire families. And our mandate is to protect, nurture, and educate the kids and their families. And that's even more important during a pandemic.
We're still under lockdown due to COVID-19, and it's been a month since the children left school.
COVID-19 has affected our school at a greater extent than any other city's school. Our students are not able to get any benefits of learning through TV, radio programs which is run by the Nepal government, because our students has no access to the TV and radio in their house. In order to manage this educational crisis, our school, despite of lots of difficulties, has able to find out an alternative way to provide education to these children.
In Yankee for the school, this meant that we've really tried to stay in contact with all the families, even when the school was being shut down. And at the earliest possible moment, we reopened the school, not the way we ran it before the pandemic. That wouldn't be possible. That would probably not make sense. But we're doing distributed teaching, whereby our teachers go to the villages, wherever we have a cluster, a bubble of kids, 5 to 10 kids. Our teachers go and instruct the kids there. So much so, each and every child has at least 1 day of instruction per week. The one program which was maybe the most affected by the pandemic is Himalayan Life Chitwan. Chitwan is a region in Nepal which is typically a bit less affluent or poorer than other places in Nepal. And so families just need support in raising their kids. We go to schools, we play hockey at schools, we play all kinds of sports, we run art programs, and we do day camps with the kids. Now, all of these programs didn't work any longer with the schools shutting down and with the possibility taken away to gather kids. So what now? We have the infrastructure, we have the staff. We have this interesting and very serious situation in South Asia that millions of people have lost their income and livelihood through the pandemic. Nepal has a population of 35 million, just like Canada, but there's an additional 10 to 15 million Nepalese living outside of Nepal, in India, in Malaysia, in Myanmar. And most of them are migrant workers sending money back to Nepal. This is, in fact, income source number one for Nepal. Hundreds of thousands of those migrant workers have returned over the last 6 months to Nepal with no savings, with no other jobs to go to. The second most important source of income in Nepal is tourism, which has fallen totally flat. So the economic fallout of the pandemic in Nepal is absolutely catastrophic. This is mostly felt so far in the south of Nepal, where people don't have any safety networks. There's no social insurance, no unemployment insurance whatsoever. The government is not helping. And people have begun to be hungry. There is need at a very, very existential level.
If we see only 30-40 kilometers away from the city, there are many people seems to be hungry, poor and needy, and they work hard but the harvest is less. They are always worried about how to survive with the families.
So for Himalayan Life Chitwan, we simply decided to completely pivot away from those programs we used to do with the kids.
When we look inside the city, there are many children on the street. We have been feeding 30 to 35 children every evening.
We still go to the very same communities as we used to go before, but no longer with hockey equipment, but simply with relief items, food, rice, lentils, oil, sugar, salt, tea, stuff for survival, helping families to get through this crisis, because quite honestly, they might not otherwise. An interesting situation has really evolved in Pokhara for our Street Children program, where we have programs to feed the kids on the streets. We have shelter programs, we have home programs, vocational training programs. We send the kids to school. The accumulated wisdom, which probably didn't amount to much at the time, in March and April about the pandemic, was to shut down everything where people came together as groups. What does this mean for street kids? The city administration shut us down. We were supposed to send the kids home, away from our homes.
This is my home.
Your home. Except they have no homes. The street would be their home. We had to find creative ways for keeping our programs open. We used to send the kids. We have some 70 kids in home care. These are kids who used to be on the street, are now in one of our street to school homes. We used to send those to 2 of the local schools. Local schools shut down. What do you do with 70 kids 24/7?
About our street boys, we started LTC, Life Transformation Center. Around 30 children were in the street. Now we have 16 boys there. Our main aim to build up them in a holistic way.
You need to come up with some programs. I'm super thankful to our local staff that they simply decided to do school themselves. They have come up with the methodology, with the plan, have gone out of their way to source the books and everything, and now we're running school.
Physically, we focus for the activities and exercise and food and hygienic cleaning about that things, and how to be careful about the COVID and other diseases. About the mentality, we want to teach them how to read and how to write. Already our big boys, they already started for the training, and younger boys, they already started for the education system and others activities. We have a very good planning schedules.
Rather than shutting down, we really had to step up our program. So I guess what I'm saying is finding creative ways to continue programs and keeping that door open, so much so the interruption is an interruption and not a cancellation. That's highly important for us as a charity. And I trust that through this relief work, doors will open for specific programs later on, which will be in that framework of protect, nurture, and educate children. At the same time, I would say that relief is the right thing to do now. Relief is for survival. Education is for transformation later on. But education doesn't make any sense if we don't have survival first.
All right, everyone, we're going into our final draw of the evening, and it is for the second and last Arc'teryx jacket. So check the chat box below to see if you get to take one home. We want to take this time to thank all of our sponsors for this evening. We want to thank Trev Dealey Motorcycles, Masonite Doors, Refinery House, Scout Campers, Beyond the Banks, Casey, Arc'teryx, and Ann Hurst for making tonight possible. Thanks so much for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of the show.
And now, this is Matthew, the filmmaker, here with us tonight. It's so nice to have you. Now, when you traveled to Nepal, this was not your planned film. What did you have planned?
Interrupted was not the intended film that was going to be made. I was originally going to be there for a month, working with Pacific Academy, going to Pokhara, going to go to Everest Base Camp. As I say in the film, that all got kiboshed by COVID, and I was looking to start
Hello, everybody. Matthew, I'm so sorry. Did I just interrupt you? My name is Misty Hurst, and I'm here with my really good friend Scott Velez. How many of you are motorcycle riders or dirt bike riders? Make some noise! Scott and I were very, very privileged to be the first people to go on a Himalayan Life Adventures motorcycle tour in Nepal a couple years ago. It was an incredibly emotional experience. Who would like to go to Nepal and ride some motorcycles? Yes! Awesome. I think you guys are all gonna love this next film. It totally speaks for itself. It's all about adventure motorcycle riding in Nepal. Please enjoy, everyone.
This is Himalayan Life Adventures, a motorcycle, 4x4, trekking, and mountain biking tour company in Nepal, with all profits going to Himalayan Life projects. Participants get to experience an epic trip, while at the same time contributing to Himalayan Life's work of protecting, nurturing, and educating children in Nepal.
So, we're having breakfast, we're looking out at this
amazing view of Pokhara and the whole valley and the mountains in the background. And we rode down this mountain through these rough roads, and I started thinking, oh, it'd be fun to share this with some friends, bring them back here to, to check it out.
And this is Scott Fellez, motorhead and visionary for the motorcycle portion of HLA, which was originally created under the name Adventuring with Purpose. In 2018, 2 inaugural dirt biking tours were announced, drawing in friends and motorheads to Nepal.
How did you hear about Himalayan Life Adventures?
A friend of mine from church.
Through a friend of mine.
So a friend of mine.
I reached out to previous participants to hear their stories and reflections of their trip.
Some way. I mean, the riding was intense and spectacular and nerve-wracking, exciting, chaos really is what riding in Nepal is like.
There was a lot to take in. I mean, whether it was driving the crazy streets or the curvy roads or the mountaintops, just everything. It had so much to offer.
The trip to the lower Mustang Valley was pretty cool. Just a stark contrast between some of the first places we went to, and then all of a sudden we're in this high altitude, barren, rocky terrain.
Mustang really jumps out. This sort of rolling step, flowy, higher speed, but spectacular views at the same time. And
it was just super cool. It's like a moon desert landscape. There's just no vegetation anywhere.
Like the scenery up there looked like you were riding on Mars. It's mountainous, it's dusty, it just goes on forever.
I mean, there are favorite places, but I just found that there was not one place that I didn't like. It was just it was so different and so neat, and so just the chaos that was Nepal. And
a common theme from all participants was that Nepal was just simply epic, everywhere. I got way more stories and tales than I could possibly fit into one film.
Like I said, that trip from Chitwan to Pokhara, the suspension bridges, like all of it.
It was all amazing,
It's really, really difficult to even have a most. So, as far as what stuck with me the most, there was so much.
The one story I was most interested in was the original name, now current slogan, Adventuring with Purpose.
A few years back, some things happened that made me start reflecting on sustainability for Himalayan Life. So it's really dependent on donations. But as Adventuring with a Purpose was evolving, it kind of started looking at more, can this be something that could be developed into a business that can, create sustainability for Himalayan Life? So basically all the profits from Adventure Purpose go straight back into supporting Himalayan Life. And that's the whole purpose behind Adventuring with a Purpose.
Himalayan Life Nepal is working into 3 sectors. One is community kids program, and one is street children's program, and then another is schools.
This is Suresh Shrima, an HLA staff and one of the first to join Scott's vision of Adventuring with Purpose.
The street kids where we work, they can also involve with us like mechanic training, maybe some porters or some helping,
It's also a training facility. So we right now have a young boy learning to become a mechanic, and he's going to get trained as a guide and get his motorcycle license, and he's going to be one of our guides on our trips. There's so many opportunities to give kids training and to be able to create jobs for them, right?
As part of the motorcycle tour, participants get to visit a few projects Himalayan Life has in Pokhara, namely the street shelter and the street to school homes.
That part was exciting and chaotic, and then it was paralleled by being able to go and see the projects that Himalayan Life works with, and those were super emotional. Going to the first street shelter and seeing the first line of where these kids who are often addicted to sniffing glue and they live on the street, they have no home.
At the Children's Food Center in Pokhara, it was really sad because some of the kids were on substance abuse, and then some of the kids look really young, like they looked like they were 10 years old. It was really sad to see. So, but it was good at the same time that they have a place to go.
The day center, the kitchen, the kids that were still on the street but going to the day center. That was amazing and made the trip. The purpose part of the trip really important to me.
But then they left and they went back out into the street. And I just remember seeing these children the same ages as my children, you know, just walking back into the street.
And you get to see the kids on the street where they come to the street kitchen, you know, to get meals, and you get to see how rough it is for them. And then you get to go to the next place where they're in the programs and they're, you know, living, they're totally transformed, they're completely different.
The compound in Pokhara, that was quite impressive, seeing the work that they're doing there.
The connection that Himalayan Life had with just the people they were serving, they were working with, that was really cool, just to see them connecting with the children.
That made us feel good about what we were doing too, knowing that part of the proceeds was going to support that program.
That kind of added the value-based piece of the trip.
The environment was so different that that's where like my heart would just swell and burst. We just knew that they were taken care of, and it was a stark contrast to seeing, you know, the bridge where they used to sleep under.
The purpose is to go and explore. The purpose is to go and experience and learn. The purpose is to do something that makes a difference in someone else's life, all at the same time.
So that's that, taking them from that place of not life to life. You get to see it, and it's heart-wrenching, you know, like. So essentially, you know, Adventuring with a Purpose isn't necessarily just a motorcycle tour company. We try and go beyond and everything to give you a really great experience from beginning to end. We want you to experience Nepal, see what Himalayan Life's doing, and, you know, just have a fantastic time. So.
Would you recommend this trip to others?
I would definitely recommend it to people who like biking and who are able to bike that kind of terrain.
I would recommend it to people who want more from their vacations, like they want a purpose, like they don't want to just entertain themselves, they want to, you know, make a difference in the world.
It was definitely a worthwhile trip.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely I would recommend it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
There is no better way of doing a trip to Nepal than to do a Himalayan Life Adventures tour. The biggest difference between this and like a regular tour company is you are immersed in the land and the culture that is Nepal. And then to top it all off, the greatest part is that you're giving back to the community. You get to meet and shake hands and hug the people that you're impacting. And it'll never leave you for your whole life. You will always remember that moment.
Final thoughts?
Fun.
Okay.
Woo!
If anybody's watching, do it.
Do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Life is enjoy.
It's very neat to start seeing more and more familiar faces in these films. And here I am with another local hero. This is Dr. John Hamilton, local GP, who has in fact gone to Nepal on a Himalayan Life adventure. We'd love to hear your perspective of that.
Thank you, Heidi. Hello, everybody. I went to Nepal the first time around 25 years ago. And I went there in search of adventure, and certainly I found it, going there to do some mountaineering with a dear friend. But you know, one of the things that was really significant for me when I was there, and anyone who's been to a lesser developed country would know this, was that there was so many people who were so profoundly poor. And I have to suggest that there was a sort of a sense of hopelessness sometimes for me, and sometimes I felt a little bit helpless when I was there. And so in actuality, I didn't really do anything. I went and achieved the thing that I went there to achieve, which was, you know, climbing a pretty big mountain, and it was very difficult and it was challenging. And then I came home, and I was grateful to be at home. You know, things changed a little bit for me in Nepal when I went back the second time with my wife. I happened to see a presentation that Daniel put on, and he helped me out with a guide there for a walk that we did on the roof of the world. And but the really important thing that happened for me is that there was a recognition about some of the work that Himalayan Life was doing, and I recognized that I was also at a different sort of stage in my life. And I have to suggest that the transformational change message of Himalayan Life was really profound for me. It afforded the opportunity for myself and my wife to participate in a bigger way in some of the projects that were happening. We traveled first of all to Pokhara the first time that we went, and we were so enamored. You actually saw one of the people in Pokhara there, Chandaman, who was speaking in one of the last films. And then, we were so enamored the first time, we had to do it again. And so we went again, and we participated in a Himalayan Life adventure and, challenged ourselves with some considerable altitude and the demands of walking at altitude, but also found challenges in the school at Yangri, in the projects that Himalayan Life is running. And quite frankly, it is impossible to come away from seeing those things without being inspired and wanting to participate. I hope to go back there again. Nepal never lets me down. The culture is an incredible thing to experience. It's something that I wish I could share with all sorts of people that I know. And it's such a pleasure to be here today to share some of the films with everyone and to share this experience too in Yarrow. So thank you for the evening.
I'm going to take this chance to pass the mic back to Daniel to tell you just a little bit more about the things that Himalayan Life is accomplishing across the country. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
So I get 1 minute. Thank you, Heidi. I get 1 minute to say more about Himalayan Life. But really, Heidi, you've been there, you've seen it, and it's very simple. We rescue children, we protect children, we nurture children, and we educate children. We presently have some 500 children in home care. We have 150 staff who are dedicated to their jobs. We create vocational training opportunity for kids in the framework of our recycling plant. It's about people and planet, right? At the recycling plant, in the 8 years of operation, we have recycled a total of 60 million plastic bottles. So if you take those bottles, just for a visual, if you take those bottles and fill them in box cars and hitch them together as a real long train, it will be a train that goes from Chilliwack past Hope into the Fraser Valley, that's kind of cool. But to me, even more important is the quality of life that young people receive as they're going through those programs. Most recently, during the COVID crisis, we had to pivot to relief quite a bit. There's just so many families who can barely make it through this crisis because they have lost their work and their income, and there is no CERB and there is no government that looks after them. And so we've had the privilege of distributing 25,000 pounds of rice over the last few months to a total of, just under 500 families with, if I remember the numbers right, it's about 2,000 children and 900 adults who have been the beneficiaries of that. So that gives me a lot of joy that we have this opportunity to help in a way that's sure, some of it is relief, but mostly it's not a handout, but it's a leg up. Give kids a chance for a better life. That's all it is. It's quite simple.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. We put this together not as a fundraiser, not to raise money, but to share with you a little bit more about Nepal and why we have hearts for it and the good work that we know is happening there. We do invite you to keep following along. Check out the Himalayan Life website, and we invite you to join with us on June 5th and 6th in our event called The Extra Mile. It's moving our bodies, hiking a mountain, riding our bikes, the extra mile for children's education in Nepal. There's more information about that in your swag bag, and if you scan the QR code, you'll get straight to the page on the website. Now, I happen to have one of the very first signed up team captains here, and Karina, who is also Daniel's wife, will tell you a little bit more about the extra mile.
Thank you, Heidi. Well, truth be told, I'm not really an athlete. Running, hiking up a mountain in the morning before breakfast, that is certainly not my thing. Or cycling in the pouring rain, no thank you. But on June 5th, I will go out and cycle 50 Ks, 50 Ks, gladly, rain or shine, with a smile on my face, thinking of the children in the Himalayas and their need for education. And also, I will reach out to my friends and ask them to pitch in and to support my efforts for Himalayan life.
Thank you. I'll definitely be part of it too. Thanks, Karina.
So, which really brings us to the end of this show, and I have two more things to say. Just two more things. First of all, thank you. Thank you for everyone who has honked their horn and flashed their lights or have just quietly been sitting in their car. We're so glad that you came tonight. Secondly, thank you to everyone who has contributed tonight. And this will be from stringing lights to building that nice popcorn and the chai and this very stage. Thank you to the Fresh Air crew who have brought out the awesome equipment. Thank you everybody who has contributed.
And goodbye.
Woo!